When we consider a student that sort of thrives, we see the development of the whole person. And often unrecognized in educational literature is the emotional side of that person. And a growing body of research has actually begun to sort of unravel that critical role of emotion in the student experience. And while that emotion can be defined in a lot of different ways, it's most often the undesirable emotions that can lead to problems with student success. Recently, academic attention has turned to the emotion of anxiety and its impact on student engagement. And it has begun to show a very distinct gap in the academic outcomes between students with little to no anxiety and those with very high anxiety. So experiencing this negative emotion as the primary sensation that occurs during a display of learning would definitely damage the learning outcome. And in addition, anxiety has also been found to be negatively correlated with goal-oriented behavior and motivation. So high levels of anxiety can lead to damaging effects to cognitive tasks, mental focus, and information processing, which really over time can lead to negative educational consequences. So these moderate to high anxiety students often fill their working memory with those very negative emotions. And subsequently, they experience low engagement in task performance as their cognitive effort is expended on coping. So recent primary studies have discovered that the vital psychological factors of goal-oriented behavior and motivation are the key constructs to the success of community college and university level students. So you can kind of surmise that the greater the negative emotion of anxiety in the student, the more their motivation and retention capabilities become eroded. And while research has identified that connection with anxiety to academic achievement, it has yet to fully explore remediation strategies in the area of course design that could attend to a variety of learners and varying levels of anxiety. So in order to bridge this gap in research, my study would explore three methods of instructional design: instructor-directed, independent, and collaborative, in a number of public speaking classes to sort of ascertain the influence each of these designs have on anxiety levels. And while knowing that an issue exists is valuable, honestly, faculty cannot aid their students in managing anxiety if understanding of how course design may influence that emotion is not considered thoroughly. So there's definitely a problem here, and this present study considers the role of student emotions in the context of developing a more effective instructional strategy. Now, specifically, the emotion of anxiety has been discovered to have a great deal of impact on student engagement, performance, motivation, and interest. And recent studies have connected the feelings of anxiety to a reduced ability to maintain interest or enjoyment in learning, which is an effect that may have detrimental impact on academic achievement. Now, anxiety often surfaces when students feel isolated or unengaged, which are two emotions that are typically associated with very passive learning. So in order to foster academic success and sort of remove the negative potential that anxiety has, course design and delivery needs to be considered together. Kahu, in their article in 2014, sort of asks instructors to consider emotions such as interest and belonging as they lead to a greater success and a reduced level of anxiety. And in order to cultivate those emotions, instructors are going to want to consider a variety of different options, including student-centered learning and very purposeful organization of their content. So let's take a look at some of these organizational patterns and see what we can do in terms of course design, beginning first with the instructor-directed approach to learning. Now, the instructor-directed approach has been prevalent for decades. At the birth of higher education, the inspiring lecture was sort of the root of academic pedagogy. Now, while tools and methods have altered and advanced, lecture-based courses really permeate the college classroom today. And it's not uncommon for a new college student to experience a majority of their classes delivered in this manner. For some instructors, the lecture is a way to sort of clarify the most complex of topics, and many of us teach as we were taught. And so the instructor-directed approach reaches back across decades of instructional practice. And media representations of professors also sort of tend to use the instructor-directed approach as the primary method of instruction. With the idea of instructor-directed college classrooms to present both in the classroom and in the literature, clarification is sort of needed on how that instructor-directed approach can be defined. Mahatma Gandhi and Tonkaponi reference Cassup when they define the instructor-directed design as a traditional method of instruction in which the key element is the teacher. And furthermore, the instructor-directed approach to course design is really a method in which discussion, demonstration, and skill enhancement is provided by the teacher alone. So ultimately, the teacher is the center of the classroom. Though the use of extensive lecturing and direct summative assessment, through that, the student is evaluated on information they've retained. Now, in addition to this, we have some benefits and drawbacks. And while arguments exist against lectures and the direct approach as a whole, there really are benefits that you can observe. Pinson, in their 2012 article, proposes that many of these arguments against lecturing stem from ineffective lectures or weakly designed courses. With proper training and awareness, the college instructor may be able to enhance the student experience. French and Kennedy also share 7 valuable benefits of the well-trained and properly delivered lecture, such as context and structure for a subject, offering sustained argument and even narrative to supplement the content, motivation, challenging students, could potentially promote strong listening and note-taking skills, among other things. So lecturing through instructor-directed design can ultimately be an effective method of instruction if designed well and delivered with passion. However, while the lecture may be a highly useful teaching methodology, it really must adapt to a changing environment, a changing educational environment. So it should include other innovative approaches. So without effective training and consideration of additional strategies, the instructor-directed approach will likely experience a number of drawbacks, and much of which we understand about the learning process seems to sort of contradict with that traditional instructor-directed lecture-based approach. Specifically, social constructivism, which is a popular theoretical framework now, sees the student as the constructor of knowledge rather than the simple receiver of it. And the ability to transfer book knowledge to real-world problems are skills that are sort of required now in this global, fast-paced business world. So instilling these skills can kind of be a challenge for instructors that use this particular approach when students are asked to passively soak up knowledge. So considering that students tend to forget most of what they hear in a lecture in 15 minutes after it's heard, it sort of leads to the conclusion that students struggle with passive learning. And in addition, research has shown that our minds are actually capable of thinking 600 words per minute, approximately, while we can really only speak 150 words per minute. So it's not surprising that a student's mind can easily wander during a very extensive lecture. We need to consider what we can do to engage the mind rather than allowing it to stray. And effective teachers seek to engage students with the process of reasoning and problem solving, which can be kind of difficult with a solely instructor-directed approach if it's not very carefully prepared. So let's look at another option, and this option is the second course design, which is the independent approach. Now, the independent approach is a unique one because it can be done in a number of ways. Former Harvard President Derek Bach, in his book, Our Underachieving Colleges, provides his assessment of the changes that have sort of occurred in the classrooms of colleges across the nation. Never before has extensive intellectual resources been so readily available to enhance our undergraduate experience. That's what he says. This statement really references our ability to teach our course entirely from a distance, using resources such as learning management systems as our, quote, virtual classroom. Students who were unable to attend college in the past due to work or family are now able to do so straight from their homes. And in many cases, entire degrees can even be attained online. So while many courses have transitioned their brick and mortar content into the online platform, there are some that are still requiring at least some face-to-face component. And this is where the hybrid courses enter. Online courses are defined as courses where most or all of the content is housed online, and there's little to no face-to-face meetings. Hybrid courses retain many of the components of an online course, but require students to attend at least some of their courses, their meetings face-to-face. So while practitioners in a number of disciplines may find face-to-face meetings unnecessary, others find them absolutely vital. Like in public speaking, you can have all of your material online while you host the speeches live in a classroom. So the hybrid version of the public speaking course is essentially an independent learning process. And the self-directed learner, who is one that has a high degree of personal discipline and strong organizational skills, would be adept at this. Essentially, it provides students with an independent learning opportunity in which they may master concepts and achieve advancement in their learning without the specific direction and live presence of a teacher for the vast majority of their time together. So both hybrid and online courses that essentially center around independent design offer benefits and drawbacks regardless of the discipline. So while some experiences of independent online and hybrid courses are negative, there are others that receive a great deal of benefit. So as previously mentioned, the most obvious benefit of independent online courses is the ability to take the class when the opportunity would otherwise not exist. So in addition, independent courses offer a unique opportunity for diverse learners to gain knowledge at their own pace. While most independent online and hybrid courses are set to a specific schedule, students really can revisit the information to increase their understanding. So in addition, these courses offer a more relaxed setting for content. You can use that delivery to sort of attain the information in a more laid-back manner. Lehman and Concieco share in their 2014 book that students tend to be more comfortable communicating in such an informal setting. The tools offered in the online learning management system, such as discussion boards or blog tools and wikis, provide experiences that students today find very comfortable. So these social tools can actually lead to additional relational opportunities and more social support. Now, as the need for online and hybrid courses rise, faculty are beginning to see that this design is not without its challenges. The issue of online student success and retention has required a great deal of study and evaluation due to its sort of ever-changing nature and its brief tenure in the field of education. Now, there's been an increase in participation in online courses by over 300%. And unfortunately, this statistic is dramatically dampened by the fact that as many as 20 to 80% of those students don't even complete their online course. So for some students, the independent learning experience really could be a negative one. Poor organizational structure, lack of instructor communication, a need for community, and sometimes the perceived rigor and efficacy of online courses are just a few reasons why students may be unsuccessful in a course that offers independent learning environment. So let's look at our final course design, which is considered the collaborative approach. This is the newest of the designs. And this one is one that is being attempted across the board, K through 12 and in higher ed. So while verbal communication skills are honestly among the top 3 skills desired of graduates, the number 1 desired skill cited by companies is the ability to work as a team. The inclusion then of a collaborative learning as a main focus for in-class activities in like this public speaking course seems highly appropriate. So in order to implement true cooperative learning, practitioners need to first consider how cooperative learning differs from traditional group work. Johnson & Johnson in their 1999 article described cooperative learning groups as those that specifically and purposely encourage cooperation among its members. Now, these groups work together to sort of achieve goals, encourage individual members, and reflect as a group on tasks. Specifically, these differ from traditional group work in that cooperative learning Cooperative learning groups feel incapable of achieving goals without the efforts and a strong sense of accountability by its members. So let's look at some of those benefits that we might have with this course design for these particular personnel involved. The collaborative approach alters the view of the instructor from the delivering of information into waiting minds to the mentor and tutor within the process of learning. Essentially, the instructor becomes sort of an ever-present guide during the learning process, while fellow classmates escalate their involvement and interaction in the learning of the group. So since collaboration is an active process, the skills are developed through very realistic and meaningful practice. So if the collaborative design is done well, it creates a meaningful learning experience that gives the student both quantity and quality in the knowledge gained and effort expended. And in addition, a direct association between collaborative learning methods and enjoyment in the learning process has been very distinctly established, which can lead to the assumption that there might be a very decent connection between the idea of a collaborative course and a lowering of that anxiety. Now, there are drawbacks to this. In consideration of the cost and rewards of moving to a design such as this, it has to be thought through. And it may be that some of the costs outweigh the possible rewards for individual instructors or even full institutions. This design really demands preparation time outside of the classroom, which can at times be really extensive. We're looking at the potential need for a sort of flipped classroom, which if you are unfamiliar with that particular type of design, it takes a lot of outside practice. And instructors kind of feel that overhauling existing course, or they may feel that overdoing these courses or redoing these courses may be a little too time consuming. And the variation in the course content and learning objectives, instructor abilities, the institutional resources, those all require instructors' application of a collaborative learning method to manually adapt course material and instructional methods in order to meet pedagogical standards. So, as a result, the effectiveness of any collaborative application is entirely dependent on the quality of the materials and the methodology used by the instructor. In addition, the reworking of in-class activities towards a collaborative approach is the fact that the manual adjustment of a traditional course lecture to a sort of flipped design in that collaborative group requires a large upfront time investment on behalf of the instructor. So keeping that in mind, it can be a bit overwhelming. So in order to make sure that these courses, each of the three designs, is fully addressed and done so with a theoretical framework that gives it some ground, we have to look at what theories might be applicable to this particular topic. Now, experiential learning theory was the first that came up in the address of this particular information. And experiential learning theory was developed by David Kolb in 1984 and sees learning as a holistic process. And that's including not only cognitive experiences, but behavioral connections as well. And these experiences are organized in a very cyclical manner, beginning with concrete experiences and then subsequently, following a path through reflective observation, abstract conceptualization, and active experimentation. And a course would be organized following this cycle in order to foster the greatest opportunity for learning. Now, uncertainty reduction theory, which was established by Berger and Calabrese in 1975, also reveals the human need to reduce feelings of uncertainty and subsequently its connection to anxiety. And that process by which we sort of attempt to reduce or eliminate those emotions, which connects really well to this particular topic. Now, URT goes on to sort of posit that that the expectations and predictable experiences for them to occur, higher levels of confidence and lower levels of anxiety tend to ensue once that happens. So using active, passive, and interactive strategies during class time can help to reduce that anxiety. So therefore, kind of interlacing of ELT and URT is fitting in the organizational pattern of the original ELT. and it requires the repeating of experiential learning cycle, which offers that predictable pattern needed to reduce uncertainty and anxiety. So here's a model of what we could see it potentially look like. The potential influence of course design and public speaking anxiety is a highly applicable condition to employ the merging of those two theories. And the repetitive cyclical nature of ELT lines up directly with the strategies that can be used to reduce anxiety. So each course design is prepared with both experiential learning theory and uncertainty reduction theory in mind. Course materials, activities, assignments, and content delivery are developed based on the principles and strategies found in those theoretical frameworks. So for example, a unit of content in a public speaking course would be organized starting with the interactive concrete experiences such as discussion forums or group work. The second stage would include activities such as journaling or peer feedback, which would make up the passive and or active strategies during reflective observation. And the third stage of abstract conceptualization would also focus on passive and or active strategies, and would encompass new content application, research, or the expansion of original ideas initially addressed during the first step. So active experimentation would then wrap up the unit with interactive strategies such as presentation delivery, and other residential tools. If you were teaching, say, a writing class, you might do papers in this particular stage. So each unit of public speaking course would follow a sort of similar path in order to provide students with experiential learning that fosters a reduction in uncertainty and in anxiety. Here is provided a table that will give you a little bit of information about how one might be set up. So while the fundamental design can kind of vary from course to course, the theoretical procedure remains constant, and each course will follow the Kolb's ELT stages and URT strategies for reducing uncertainty. So for example, each unit, regardless of the course designs, will begin with the interactive strategies within a concrete experience and then thus follow. So as you can see here, we have our concrete experience, and in the instructor-directed approach, we follow a procedure to meet the concrete experience with an interactive strategy, but also highly focused on the teacher, whereas the collaborative approach would be more group setting and the independent approach would be more individually driven. And that follows for every single stage. So you've got kind of an overview of how a unit would be set up, and you would do a number of units, however many is necessary for that to occur. So hopefully you can kind of see how this would work. And if you have questions or comments, I would love to hear them. Essentially, these courses will be fully designed and be used later on, and hopefully to achieve some understanding of how anxiety is influenced by course design. Thank you so much.